This lady had been going to the same restaurant every week for years. She made it a point to order the daily special every day, and it was the highlight of her day. This man, however, abruptly ejected her from the restaurant one day. He quickly came to regret his actions. He was shocked when he discovered who this old lady was. This 88-year-old patronized the same eatery on a daily basis. She arrived on her own all the time and ate the daily special every day. It was a much-anticipated trip for her. She knew everyone on the staff, and they all chatted with her while she ate. But she was acting suspiciously the previous time she was in the restaurant. She was nervous over dinner and didn't want to talk to the employees like she usually did. The staff saw the woman wasn't feeling well and questioned what was wrong. They made the decision not to pursue the woman for the money she owed them. After all, she was a frequent visitor, and the payment could be made later. For the past 30 years, the woman had been a regular at their restaurant, sitting at the same table by the window, at the same time, every time. Everyone on staff knew who she was. B hadn't always visited the restaurant alone. B arrived with her husband at first. Because of the high quality of the cuisine, her husband adored the modest and inexpensive restaurant. B and her husband dined there for the first time in the restaurant's first week of operation. She also frequented the restaurant with her family. Her 30-year wedding anniversary was also celebrated at the restaurant, which was booked out exclusively for her. They dined on great food and danced all evening. However, B's life was not always this festive. The love of her life passed suddenly less than a year ago, after a brief illness. B was unable to cope and found being alone quite tough. For weeks, the elderly lady wailed. She was alone and had no one with whom to converse. There was no one to cuddle with. Family and friends watched as the once happy woman became increasingly depressed. She wasn't in the mood for anything anymore. She lost her appetite for life. Then, help came from a surprising source. One day, a letter arrived under her door. The letter was written by the personnel at the restaurant where she worked every week. They recognized her and offered her a free supper because they hadn't seen her in a while. Her upbeat presence at the restaurant has been missed by the staff. B had to make a difficult decision. It would be her first trip on her own. She had never gone to a restaurant by herself before, but she had no choice. She needed to try to pull herself out of the abyss of despair she was in, and she was certain that seeing the restaurant employees would help her. B's life had changed dramatically in the last 3 months, but the restaurant remained the same as it had always been. She recognized the smells and heard the same noises coming from the kitchen. It was as if the widow had returned home. Her table was set aside for her, and she took a seat in her comfortable chair. Tears welled up in her eyes as she gazed out the window. She reflected, "Here I am." But then the restaurant's owner sat down with her. He desired to remain in her presence. He assured her, "We've known each other for over 30 years, so we won't let you down." It had been a fantastic evening for B. For a brief period, she forgot about her loss as she interacted with the personnel. They assisted her throughout the evening in the hopes of seeing B again soon. B's spirits were lifted for the first time since her husband's death, slowly but steadily. Everyone could see her reverting to the pleasant woman she had always been. As B felt everything getting better, something happened at the restaurant. A new floor manager had been appointed, which had created a minor adjustment to the restaurant's dynamics. And the man in question didn't care about his employees' well-being. He didn't mind upsetting the personnel because he loved to mix things up. When B walked in, she instantly spotted it. The mood had become gloomier. There was no longer any time for visitors, and everyone went to work with a grumpy expression on their face. Then came B, who was so nice. She took a seat at her table, and the wait staff did everything they could to get her favorite cuisine as soon as possible. So how about a little chat? Because the floor manager's gaze was locked on them, they couldn't. With an angry face, the manager walked over to B. Among the staff, he heard B's name, and he didn't see the friendly, regular client whom everyone adored in the situation. On the bulletin board, he noticed the receipt. A receipt adorned with hearts and encouraging comments from the staff. Regardless, there's a receipt for a bill that hasn't been paid. With receipt in hand, he stormed over to B and began sternly speaking to her. "This restaurant is for paying customers only. I don't care how nice everyone thinks you are. You did not pay your bill, so I'm going to have to ask you to leave the restaurant. We are not a charity." B sat motionless, saying nothing. She took a piece of paper from her handbag and scribbled something on it while she gazed at the man. She stuffed it into the black wallet on the table and walked away without saying anything. Robin was in charge of clearing the woman's table. He placed the cutlery on the plates and began to discard the napkin. He did, however, notice the black pocketbook that B had left behind under the napkin. Is this the payment for the bill? Maybe she just left the money on the table and walked away. Robin took the wallet and opened it, curious. However, there was no cash inside. All that was left was a note that would impact the lives of all of the restaurant's employees. Robin ripped the note from the black folder and cried out. What did he just read? A sheet of paper in the folder had a touching statement on one side. To the restaurant staff, I have enjoyed coming to this restaurant for over 30 years. I have seen everything in the restaurant change. I have seen the staff come and go. The menu has changed dozens of times, but I've always stayed. I've had very good times here. But even in bad times, you have always been a support to me. Now that I am old and sick, I would like to thank you very much by leaving you with a nice amount of money. She added a note to the back of the check. That new floor manager will not see a cent of my money though. And I will also call the restaurant owner to give him a piece of my mind about that awful man. Robin turned over the check and saw the amount. The waiter couldn't believe it. The check was made out for $550 that was specially for the staff. He gave it to the owner, who was heartbroken because he had known B for 30 years and he realized he wouldn't see her again. He was content with the money, but he preferred B to be happy and healthy, eating and chatting with him, because loved ones are more valuable than all the money in the world. After a brief phone conversation with B, the floor manager was fired on the spot. B was correct. Such a man had no place at the restaurant, which she had called home for the past 30 years.